I'm Johnny Smith from the Late Break Show.
I'm Richard Porter from Sniff Petrol. Together, we're Smith and Sniff, and we have a question for you. Do you like beautiful cars and lawns? Well, have we got something for you? It's the Cartier Style Luxe. Beautiful cars parked on a lawn.
The marriage of style and luxury on grass.
Seemed like the impossible dream, and yet here we are. So we're going to go and look at some beautiful cars, but don't touch.
Okay, so 30 years ago, 1992. 30 years ago, wow. Yeah, the McLaren F1 was born, and that's what this area of the Style Luxe represents. In fact, I don't know, how many have we got here?
6. They made 107 McLaren F1s. We've got 6 here. To see one F1 in real life would be pretty exceptional.
Yeah.
To find 6 clustered together is genuinely quite remarkable. This is about 5% of all McLaren F1s ever made on one lawn. This one is a GTR race car, as you can see. It's also a reminder, I think, that although this is one of the crowning achievements of 1990s automotive industry, it is also a reminder that 1990s graphics were not very nice.
Although this is another GTR here.
Now this is even more special. This is a long tail racer.
Yeah,
so
I quite like the graphics
even more rare
on the long tail.
Well, it's in period, isn't it?
It's of its time, very much. A bit of fluorescent going on there. So it reminds me of my swimming shorts. But who cares about my swimming shorts? It's all about the fact that the GTR was a single seater. Is
yes.
that right? Yes.
As with all F1s, the seat is in the middle, which is quite good for a racing car. But the road cars are like that as well.
We were looking at this car earlier, right? And
yeah.
We both kind of pondered and stroked our chins and went, why has it got the gear ball from a Mark 1 Golf GTI? Can you imagine being the owner of one of the most expensive cars in the world?
We still don't know.
And take the gear knob off and go, I'm going to put the gear knob from the Golf on there.
Grippy, I suppose. There's another F1 over there, road car. You can't move for them. That one is one of the early factory cars, prototypes. You can tell as much because, and this is a very nerdy fact, it has the door mirrors from a Citroen CX, very popular with low volume cars. They're also on the Jaguar XJ220, but most production F1s had door mirrors from the VW Corrado.
Come
Stop me if I'm boring you.
Sorry, come this way.
Now,
see, this is probably the best known McLaren F1
well,
road car.
Yeah, certainly one of them, Corrado mirrors, but lovely aubergine colour, built for Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah. This was crashed at least twice.
By Rowan Atkinson.
By Rowan Atkinson. The second time quite near my house, near Peterborough. There were still bits of it in the tree.
Was that the one where he hit a Metro?
No, that wasn't the Metro.
Oh,
that was a wet bit of road on the A605, just in case you're interested.
That was the one where it was broken in half a little bit?
The whole rear clamshell kind of shattered and flew off.
But the great thing is with these cars, such is their value, that you can go back to McLaren and they will put it back together for you, as they've done here. Rowan Atkinson no longer owns this car, and so it's somebody else's now, and it's in one piece again, thanks to the people at the McLaren factory.
Well, it's such is the value of them that you don't really write them off.
No.
I mean, we're going to go on to another couple here, but as we do, I was thinking to myself, like, actually, what's the worth of all the McLaren F1s that we're stood next to here? I mean, I
think as a sort of guide, that if one came up for sale, and they very rarely do, obviously, it would $20 million is about the going rate at the moment. So 6 times 20 is a lot. It's $120 million.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more because of the GTR race.
The long tail would probably fetch a bit more because they're even more rare. Yeah. So yes, there's a lot of cars here. You can pay $20 million for a McLaren F1, and let me tell you something, you still get the electric mirror adjuster from a Vauxhall Cavalier thrown in for free. So even amazing sports cars, supercars, hypercars like this still have to share parts with lesser cars.
So of course the T50, the Gordon Murray T50, is the sort of spiritual successor to this with its 3 abreast seating, and that's kind of the central driving position was what this car was always about. Everything revolved around that, and the whole design of the cabin dictated what went on elsewhere.
Yeah. It's worth saying that the T50 has cameras for mirrors. Bad news for the Volkswagen Corrado mirror industry. Right, now,
Isn't it mad to think those 17-inch wheels, as I walked past, I was thinking, in 1992, the 17-inch wheel was a big deal.
they were huge, and now
Even
get
a
those
base
on a
model,
Polo.
Well, even a base model Peugeot probably
Yeah,
has 17.
yeah. That's where we are. Anyway, should we go and have a look at these interesting older things
Much
over
older,
here?
some pre-war elegance.
One of the other areas here on the Style et Luxe lawn is called Le Grand Routier. It's a celebration of pre-war elegance, basically beautiful touring cars for the super rich, France, Italy, the taste setters of pre-war Europe. So you've got things like this Bugatti Type 57, which has elephant skin seats. Very much of its time. I think back then you picked an animal, you had it peeled, you lined your car with it, nobody said anything.
I think it was a reminder of the fact that if you had the money, you could fulfill your wildest automotive dreams.
Yes.
And a lot of car companies kind of came and went and have been forgotten about, but they still created some insane things, and that really...
I'd like a gear knob that's a whale's eyeball. Certainly, sir. We'll have it ready in a week.
Yeah.
So we've got some beautiful stuff over here. Pre-war Lancia with bodywork styled by Farina. This little Fiat here, it's very sweet. Also styled by Farina. Lovely sort of teardrop shape. But I think for me and for you, the highlight is this. It's nuts.
Until we got here earlier today, I had no idea what this car was. I had to make some notes. Apparently it's called a Bucciali or a Bucciali, and this is pre-war extravagance wound up to 11. So take Art Deco, take sort of endless pots of money, and you've got a Parisian company called the Buck Company, and they predominantly showcased front-wheel drive cars. So really early days of front-wheel drive. This thing doesn't look front-wheel drive, but it happens to be front-wheel drive. And the proportions, we come around the side because the proportions of this thing are bonkers.
It starts with the wheels. Now, you know, sort of modern car designers are obsessed with having big wheels because they make cars look great. Nothing is new. Look at this.
No, they were
This is a big wheel. This reminds me of the way the Rolls-Royce with the modern generation Phantom went. The wheels have to be a certain size to work with the proportions of the bodywork.
Yeah.
But this is that taken to the max. It's like a truck wheel in the nicest possible way.
Yeah.
But then this incredible, this hasn't been lead sledded by some hot rodding company. This is how they wanted it to look.
And of course, taking that sort of the pinnacle of Art Deco extravagance, you can see all of the ironwork and the design on this thing. And then we'll go around to the front because, I mean, I was looking at the double spare wheel, which we didn't even reference.
Just in case.
You come around to the front, you can almost see the drive shafts from the front end. And the fact that the bonnet's enormous.
Well, it has to be enormous because under there is a V12. Now, they actually experimented with V16s as well, but this one has the mere V12, but it's front-wheel drive. It may not surprise you to know this car was built in 1932. It was driven until 1936 when it suffered catastrophic gearbox failure.
And the company went bust in 1933. And that's the thing, there's a lot of companies which have come and gone, but they made some unbelievable things, commissioned by people that had an enormous amount of cash, just wanted the best of the best. Imagine looking at this, driving along the road in the early 30s. I mean, and you've got to come around the front, because the front's just apart from the fact that it seems to have an absolute iron girder or a huge Allen key for a...
It's got an Allen key.
It's the drive couplings down there. Just wouldn't expect it to be front-wheel drive.
It's extraordinary.
But anyway.
Speaking of extraordinary, there's some Ferraris over there. Actually, on our way to the Ferraris, let's stop and look at something else extraordinary, which is an Austin 7 with a radio mast poking out of it.
It's where we do all our podcasts.
What I wanted to say about this is that this very sweet little car, part of a collection of Austin 7s to celebrate that car and Herbert Austin and everything, this one is owned by Nick Mason out of Pink Floyd. So he's not just all about 250 GTOs, he owns this as well. It's really nice.
Austin 7 is the first, well, thought to be Britain's first real people's car, dating back to 1905. So a lot of them were made, and a huge amount of them were exported. It's one of our most famous exports at the time.
Yeah. Anyway,
Anyway.
Ferraris here. The celebration here of Style et Luxe is about Ferraris, what they're calling anniversary specials. Now, if I'm going to be pedantic, that's not strictly true. Some of these were built for anniversaries. Notably, over here behind these people, the F40, built to celebrate Ferrari as a company their 40th birthday. They were originally going to make 400, and I think they were then so wowed by the response to it that they happily made over 1,000. And
F50.
F50. Now that again was built for 50th anniversary. At the time, people seemed to be a little bit sniffy about it, I think, because the engine was a sort of structural part of the car. It vibrated, it was very noisy. I think certainly journalists who drove it maybe were a little bit overawed by it, and only as time's gone on, I think people have come to appreciate this is actually
supposed to be one of Ferrari's finest drivers' cars, regardless of whether you think its proportions are right. I think the proportions a bit odd for me, but to drive, quite something. And there's another Ferrari that I know you adore, and it's just there, and we'll pop and have a gaze at it.
We're just walking past the Enzo as if it's not
I've
something...
actually never seen a non-red Enzo.
Yeah, it's nice to see Ferraris that aren't red, isn't it? Same with this LaFerrari here.
Non-red Ferraris.
LaFerrari, of course, part of what people sometimes call the hypercar holy trinity of hybrid super fast cars. There was this, the McLaren P1 and the Porsche 918.
Was that 10 years ago?
Not quite, no, it was about 2015. But this was also the first of these sort of Ferrari limited run cars where you could get one where the roof came off. First time since the F50 there, which was only available with a Targa roof.
This was the start of hybrid supercars becoming acceptable.
Yeah.
And being a thing.
However, in the nicest possible way, I don't care about that because there's a 288 GTO here. This is my favourite Ferrari ever. Child of the 80s, I'm sure I'm not alone with this. It is related, based on the 308, 328 of the 80s, but it's like one of those that's been to the gym and then been caning that protein powder you can get. So it's all bulked up.
It is.
Turbocharged V8. It was built to go Group B racing. Group B was cancelled and Ferrari went, well, that's fine. We will just make a handful to sell to some of our most valued customers. They did. This, of all of these Ferrari specials, is the most rare, but for me it's also the most brilliant.
Yeah, it is quite something, I have to say. Now on to something lightweight like this, but a little bit more dainty.
It's over here. It's a celebration of early mid-engine cars. Oh, what, the Muri you're thinking? No, before that. And
these are amazing.
This, technically, is considered to be the first mid-engined road car, D-Jet, the René Bonnet D-Jet. And
it's a great looking little thing. It's tiny, they're all tiny.
It's tiny, 1962 this came out. My favourite fact about this car is that Yuri Gagarin had one. He didn't buy it. He went on a visit to France after he'd been to space, official visit to France.
I always do that.
I often do. Once you've been to space, it's lovely to go to Loire Valley, somewhere like that, unwind.
To France to wind down.
He went on an official visit. He went to Matras. Matras, you may know as car maker, but they were also an aerospace company.
Yeah.
And he was presented with one of these as a gift. He took it back to the Soviet Union, but apparently Gagarin was a very modest man and he hated driving it because, of course, people would look at him. And that's not what he wanted, even though he'd been to space. So this is a very, very sweet little car. Yeah. Speaking of which, what else have we got? We got this.
Well, this is the Unipower.
The Unipower.
The Unipower GT.
Now, if you read certain sort of inky car magazines in the 70s and 80s, these seem to feature heavily. Mini powertrain, but plunked in the middle. These went racing, didn't they? They did all sorts of cool stuff. And but the main thing is that they sort of, it's an idea that has been reprised many times. You take a front-wheel drive drivetrain, gearbox and engine, and then it's sort of ready to go. You can, as long as you remember to lock the steering arms, just slot it in the middle. Yeah. Same technique made the MGF, for example. So, what else
lots
have we
of
got?
Early days of, I guess, glass fibres and things like that.
Yes, yeah. It's,
it makes us look like giants because it's got, I think, 10-inch wheels like an old Mini, and it's this high. Yeah. Look at it. It's a great thing.
Sweet, isn't it? I don't think I'd fit in it, but it's a sweet little car.
Yeah, but it's great to have these sorts of things recognised in this environment. You know, these things can be easily overlooked because, you know, McLarens and Ferraris and all this sort of really powerful stuff takes preference. But these cars aren't powerful. It's a different mantra altogether.
Well, let's take this Di Tommaso over here, which you can sort of just see through the crowd.
Vallelunga.
Vallelunga. Again, mid-engined, 1965. Claim to fame for this car, Gordon Murray's got one. The man who designed the McLaren F1 over there. I think the reason he likes it so much is, as we know, Gordon Murray is very much into lightness. This thing, tiny. It looks more exotic than it is.
Yeah, I think it's a Cortina engine.
It's a Cortina GT engine.
It's a Cortina GT
so it's a
engine.
4-cylinder, pretty rough and ready Ford saloon engine, but just look at it.
That's not
very
the point.
pretty.
It's 700 kilos.
700 kilos,
So-
it'll go some. And it's got the endorsement of Professor Gordon Murray, the world's lightest man. Or so he wishes. He just breathes in helium.
And a purveyor of fantastic shirts, as we know.
There's a Dino over here. Don't call it a Ferrari. It wasn't a Ferrari, except it was made by Ferrari.
Well, you know, we just looked at the 296 plug-in hybrid
Yeah.
Ferrari. I feel like this was the sort of the semi-inspiration for it in some
Yeah.
ways. Obviously, it's a V6,
Yeah.
mid-engine, but these were quite cheap and sort of underappreciated for a long time.
A long time, weren't they? People were very
actually one of the
snobbish
best-
about them, but
Yeah,
and then they went, oh, actually,
they're brilliant.
well, it is a Ferrari. It has a lovely engine, albeit one that they then shared with Fiat and Lancia. But look at it.
It's
They're
the back-
fabulous.
It's the back window for me. Just look at the back window. Look at the shape. Isn't it wonderful? Glass going in, glass going out.
Yeah.
Done.
Also, in the 60s and 70s, to make that glass, probably quite tricky.
Oh yeah,
So, but it's good that they did, because
yeah.
it's
and the
glorious.
daintiest door handles.
Now, there's a Lotus Europa over there. Talking of cars that I think Gordon Murray also has and likes.
Yeah.
Lotus's first mid-engine road car.
And a divisive looking thing.
Yes, sort of sporty pickup truck vibe going on,
Yeah.
but you know, they had their merits, didn't they?
Yeah. We could go over there now and maybe have a look at some more Ferraris, because Ferrari's celebrating its 75th anniversary, being born in 1947, the same as my dad. My dad's not as famous as Ferrari though. So sorry, Dad, we're not talking about you today.
Did your dad ever write in purple ink like Enzo Ferrari did?
No, I don't think he did. Although my dad's got amazing handwriting, he does like
Oh.
a fountain pen.
Oh well, so
So-
Enzo Ferrari used to fill his fountain pen with purple ink,
Wow.
and I've never found out exactly why.
Maybe he
It's
never
too late
told
to ask
anybody.
him. No, he probably
No.
didn't. He was an enigmatic man. This area of Stile Luxe is a celebration of Ferrari front engine models. They've called it, rather amusingly, Prancing Horse before the cart.
So are they?
Yes. This, though, goodness me,
thing.
1953 Ferrari 250. Again, bodywork by Farina, or Pininfarina as we know them now, and
Yeah.
it is an
I think
unbelievably elegant car.
It is an elegant car, and of course, you know, this wasn't a racing-looking car. You know, this was a GT car, wasn't
Yes,
it?
yes,
And
yes.
there's a thing over there. There's another rebodied car over there. A rebodied, I think it's a 330.
This is interesting because you associate generally Ferrari with Pininfarina. They design pretty much all Ferraris until quite recently. Ferrari have taken design in-house now,
Yeah.
using quite a few Pininfarina people, I guess, but they are now doing their own cars. They've quietly parted ways with Pininfarina for the most part. There was, of course, the Bertone 308 in the 70s, but generally, talking Ferrari design, you think Pininfarina. But over here,
Yeah, this thing's cool.
got a Michelotti bodied Ferrari. Oh look, someone's left a Rover SD1 on this lawn, so it's a car joke.
But you know
It's
what?
a Daytona.
It's good looking. Both of them are good looking. The SD1 and the Daytona.
Yes.
Again, one of those cars which I think has sat for a while being maybe underappreciated. And now you look at it and go, wow, I do anyway. I don't know whether it's an age
Were they
thing.
underappreciated?
No, I think they
You
were.
think?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. But that over there,
Yeah.
I mean, we will walk past a 250 GT, which is a hell of a piece of work. Probably the sexiest front bumper overriders on any car. But we are going to walk past it because, especially from this angle, look at the profile. So again, this was like a Ferrari 330, but a completely different body shell by a different styling house. And 330 is actually my favourite looking Ferrari.
But I like this.
Well, I think this is
Michelotti, I mean, they had an interesting track
Stag.
record, Triumph Stag, a lot of triumphs. Later in the 80s, they did the Reliant Scimitar SS1,
Did
not
they?
necessarily the best looking car in the world, but you know, maybe they were going through a little rough patch. This,
that's
I mean, it's got its own thing going on, hasn't it?
That
And
is
its own
gorgeous.
thing is interesting. Sort of, you can see the link back to the Grand Routier cars over there. They were sort of pre-war, super rich, rampaging around Europe, being rich and having a nice life. This would have been the later equivalent, the post-war equivalent. So in the 60s, the White Knights, the Agnelli family and people like that, who were the playboys of Europe, and they needed something. They suddenly realised they got a tennis match in London the next morning. So they would leave the party they were at in Milan and they would head across Europe at night at insane speeds,
Flat
and they would
out
probably
with a
choose
cigarette
cars
on.
like this.
Yeah.
What a life.
What a life, exactly, I can relate. We're going to go over now to some Omologato spec Lancias. I don't know about you, Rich, but for me, one of the attractions of Goodwood is it appreciates all eras and all genres. So there is something for everybody.
Yeah.
Of course, we've done 90s, we've done 20s, we've done 60s, 70s, and now we're on firmly in the sort of the 70s and 80s, really, in this Lancia homologation celebration.
Yeah.
Homologation celebration.
Homologation celebration. It's so we've got.
What can we say about an Integrale Evo?
If you're of a certain age, then this is just.
This is rally.
It's the bomb, isn't it? Yeah, it is. And this is a lovely one. But what is equally lovely is, I think people forget that the Integrale was based on a very normal hatchback, the Lancia Delta.
Yeah.
There is just a plain Delta over there, albeit it's the HF four-wheel drive one, but it basically was the sort of proto-Integrale. That's the four-wheel drive system and everything. That's where it started.
That's the
and
proof
they
of
went
concept.
rallying. And then Lancia went, we need to turn this up a bit, and this led us to this car here. But it's really nice. Come and see it. It's really nice to see
There is some race
a
car
Delta.
trumpeting over
Something
there.
is going off over there. It's really nice to see a Delta, a narrow body Delta,
Yeah.
because it's a pretty little car. Giugiaro's work.
Yeah.
He's a great designer, and this is a great, very of its period, sort of crisp edges hatchback car.
Yeah.
I bet, I've never driven one of these, I bet it's really nice.
Yeah, I've never driven one either. It's probably it's one of those cases where that's a less common, the non-Integrale is actually much rarer than the Integrale.
Yes, I think
There's
so.
less
Yeah,
survivors
because
now.
people seem to care less about these, and maybe they should, because
Yeah.
it's great. I would sort of almost rather have a go in this up the hill or anywhere than in that Stratos.
Oh, really?
Well, just because this would scare the life out of me.
Well, yeah.
It's, well, what can you say about Stratos? It's got the engine, the V6 from the Dino,
Let's
but
do a wheelbase test. How the shortness of the wheelbase of a Stratos. Remember, weirdly, such a beautiful car, but only really built for rally. Which seems a bit ironic. I think I am longer than the wheelbase. Hang on.
yeah.
Yeah?
Well, you 6'3".
Yeah.
I reckon it's probably about 6'5", 6'6".
Okay,
the
so
wheelbase of
pretty
that.
short wheelbase car. I always do that when I'm measuring wheelbases. It's the only reference that I know.
Good for agility.
Yeah, these are
It's a
supposed
rally
to be
car,
twitchy,
but twitchy is the, yes, this is why I fear this car, even parked. It threatens
Absolutely love the Campag wheels that look like
me. Campag
flowers.
wheels in gold,
Yeah.
the graphics on the side. I know I was complaining about 90s graphics being awful. That's probably because I lived through the 90s. I don't remember what things were like in the 70s, but that, brilliant,
Yeah, it is. It's
brilliant graphic. Strange, I've only just noticed a sort of apostrophe misuse in there though.
great. Stratos
Anyway,
is.
Stratos is.
So I think that concludes our little roundup of the Style Luxe lawn.
Yes.
The lawn's getting well trodden. A lot
It
of
really
foot
is.
traffic.
Lord March is going to have to head down to B&Q at some point and get some of that stuff that brings grass back. But for now, come here, enjoy trampling his grass, enjoy these wonderful cars.